Ji, Dr. Waseem, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, and welcome everybody. I mean, the alumni, the participants, as well as the experts and the speakers. So I think what an anthology we have here. Thank you, Dr. Wajiha, for putting us all together. The topic we all know that it's a university level talk we are trying to do, and about e-education or online education, or there could be other names for that as well. The two experts I would like to say a bit. I mean, we have, of course, Dr. Krishan Lal Khatri. He is online already there. Dr. Muhammad Nadeem. And then we have Mr. Jawad Khan, Muhammad Jawad Khan, and he is a PhD scholar at New Hampshire at the moment, and he is from BUITEMS, but he is basically a bioeconomist. So I think all these experts and speakers together, and the participants, the audience as well, we will all try to help each other to understand what's going on. Let me just quickly brief the format. Self-introduction, I have already mentioned, time 5 to 6 minutes. The format, Dr. Wajih has already told, it can be bilingual, so Urdu, English mix, both help. We have a question answer session. So the focus, of course, is pedagogy and technology, which we all are trying to grapple with. So saying all that, I think I would like to first invite Dr. Krishan Lal Khatri, because he just said he is sandwiched between the duties and his presence here. So Dr. Khatri, over to you, and we begin with your experience.
Thank you, Dr. Waseem. So I'm Dr. Krishan Khatri, as you introduced, and I am Assistant Professor of Electrical Engineering at NED University of Engineering and Technology, Karachi. My PhD focus was artificial intelligence in health and medicine. So it's not purely electrical in that sense, but today's technologies have merged. So that's how it happens. That's you are in one technology and then you switch to something else. So you know all about the situation that COVID forced us to go to online education. I'm not going to read the details because of the brevity of time. So what Higher Education Commission had planned was like they actually checked the institution for online readiness, and they put like 6 criteria that were technology readiness, then availability of learning management system, faculty training in online teaching, course readiness, like which courses to be offered, and then availability of course material on web and readiness of the students to switch to online learning. So they evaluated universities and they made a ranking. So our university was one of the highest ranking universities, not first one, but like it was near 100% readiness. We had all those resources available. The only thing was the matter of students to be ready for online learning, and to some extent the training to the faculty that was important timely. So what it requires to switch to online learning, you need some sort of LMS, then you need conferencing tools where you can have live sessions, and then attendance management web extensions, like how to take attendance. So if you have a smaller number of participants, then attendance is not a big deal. You can do it manually. But like for the universities like ours, and especially the department I work with, that is electrical engineering, we have like more than 250 students. So when we divided the sessions into different sections for online teaching, there was shortage of the resources. So that's why we limited, as per HEC guideline, the students to 100. And it was not an easy task to manage that attendance. So that's why we needed some sort of attendance management extensions. And I'll let you know exactly which tools we have been using. Like for LMS, we use G Suite, that's a Google suite. It has Google Classroom and other resources. And then we use Meet as a conferencing tool. So with Meet, we have a few third-party extensions that take on the role of taking attendance, and it gives you some sort of Excel sheet. Initially, it was difficult because the usernames were created, the names of the students, but generally our back-end system that is called portal, it has attendance based on roll number. So this was the first challenge that we faced in this, like to process the data from names to roll number, and then put those that attendance into the system. These are a bit more technical details. So we go into like what are the benefits of e-education or online education. The main benefits that we see is it's a cost saving tool. Like you can save a lot of cost, like transportation cost. The students don't have to come to university. So when they are at their homes, it means like they are saving some of the expense. But also at the same time, they have flexibility. Like the model that we adopted was recorded lectures, along with like if we have 3 recorded lectures, like total 80 to 90 minutes of recordings, then we had 1 live session. So we did not go for only live session. The reason was taking into considerations the issues that the students could face that I might share in the next slides. So keeping in that view, we kept the recordings. The students were supposed to view those recorded lectures and then have a live session for their queries or any kind of clarifications they needed on any part of the lecture. So when we look at the challenges that e-education or online education brings, they can be broadly categorized into 4 categories. One is social or ethical, the other one is technical, then the course readiness, and policy related, which is like between government and you can say the organizations like HEC and Pakistan Engineering Council. Because it was something that suddenly came up, so we were also not policy ready. Like there were conflicts between what government wanted or what government had kind of put the bar on certain things, while at the same time higher education regulators, they were putting another requirements which were not exactly in synchronization with each other. Social and ethical challenges, the main challenge was basically students, they were not ready to accept the change because they were used to interact in person. Same was teacher as well as student. They were not actually willing to go into that because it requires a different set of skills for teacher to deliver online, especially when it's recording. And then it requires more effort on part of the students. So what was happening was we experienced lack of discipline, lack of focus on part of the students because like they would just log in and do some other things. Some of the students were very eager to learn, but not all are like that. And then the feedback also, like there's a shyness or some other things. Sometimes the students don't give feedback during an online session as they give when you are doing a regular session. All those things like unfamiliarity with work from home ethics, and then when we come to the exams, then lack of integrity. There were possibility of collaboration of students to share what they are doing, and in order to overcome that, we needed some innovative methods of assessments. Technical challenges were unavailability of internet and hardware with the students because like being a government setup, government university, the students come from the social class that does not have readily available those working spaces, computer, hardware, etc. And also cost of internet is high. Then bandwidth availability because the kind of packages student have are like mobile packages, which has very low data bandwidth. And then electricity load shedding, like major portion of the student comes from Karachi. They may not have that many issues of lack of bandwidth, other things, but the in Sindh, like there are other universities, Mehran University and Qaid-e-Awam University of Engineering Technology and Sindh University, which is a general university. Their students, they come from far-flung areas, so they have encountered those kind of problems more frequently than we being in Karachi. We had less of these problems, but still there were problems and students were constantly pressured due to disconnections and other things. Course readiness, like in engineering, we had some courses that have the theory component, which was easier to convert into online lectures as well as like recorded lectures. But when it comes to the things where we need hands-on practice, like when we want the students, like it's when psychomotor element is there, then it's actually difficult to convey it like you can make a training video, but you cannot make the equipment available to students. So that was one of the challenge. So that's why we only did the practical that could be done on computer, like simulation or software-based labs, but
Okay,
hardware-based
5
labs
seconds
were
is
not
usually.
covered. Then I already mentioned policy-related challenges, which are actually out of the purview of Kenya until and unless you are invited to do something. So this is one of the challenges that needs to be addressed. There should be some kind of coherence or synchronization between the government and the regulatory bodies like Pakistan Engineering Council and Higher Education Commission. So what I see is future prospectus is like government and regulatory bodies, they come to consensus with all stakeholders, which is higher education institutions, students, parents, and service providers for effective education policy and enhanced availability. Then hybrid mode of education should be introduced, which have all those recorded lectures as well as the physical presence. But to make the student density less, we only call the students for the components which are critical to be done physically. And then faculty, there is a strong need of faculty to give them the um, skills which they don't have, like presenting online is kind of, it also needs some sort of acting as well. So they need to be given trainings in how to develop the online, the content that is capable of being presented online. When we do these things, I think we can have a better system of e-education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khatri. That was great. May I then request Dr. Nadeem to just share experiences?
Sure, thank you very much. So I'll get started with our story at BUITEMS. So uh, we started maybe towards the end of the March or start of the April by evaluating different alternatives for online education. And we had a team. So luckily, I belong to the computer engineering department. So we had a lot of technical people with us. So we evaluated some open source free software and then some, of course, paid services. And there were, of course, some concerns, privacy concerns and limitations with the free services. So we opted for paid service. And of course, we had top management support. That was one of the critical factors. And our dean, Dr. Bakhtiar, and our pro vice chancellor, Dr. Faisal Khan, both are Fulbright alumnus, and they supported us a lot. And we used to have like very regular meetings until we finalized what our strategy is going to be. And we had to bring everyone on board. So it was not only the teaching staff, but the IT support staff. They were, pushed to create manuals and training material for the instructors first, how to use these tools for online education. And they were very prompt, and they, created detailed manuals and conducted sessions which were online for all the faculty members. And then we were among those universities who started the online sessions in April. And the problem, we have been gathering data from students from time to time by some feedback surveys. And surprisingly, the two top most problems that we heard from students were not related to uh, teaching style, or rather they were related to power outages and poor quality of internet in Quetta city even, and in the surrounding areas. So that is why we made some of the decisions. The attendance was optional. But the students were required to watch those recorded lectures as per their convenience. And it was ensured that every lecture is recorded and the recording is made available to students. Uh, Luckily, we had LMS already in place, so that helped us a lot. So everything was uploaded to the LMS, and students were also able to see those links posted there. And another challenge that we got was related to conduct of labs. And we had to, we had a team who looked for online simulators, for example, for Raspberry Pi and, uh, you know, all different engineering subjects. We had to look for simulators. And I guess we were able to locate more than 90% of the cases, we were able to find some online solution to conduct our labs. One of the other challenges that we had was senior design projects, but luckily we are having on-campus classes now, so it's sort of a hybrid model once again. So students did have guidelines from the instructors and their supervisors, and now they are having on-campus facility as well. They are working on their senior design projects. And of course, exams have been a challenge, but we didn't go for the midterm exams yet. So we have decided to conduct the midterm and the final exams together on campus. So they are going to appear physically in the exams. And of course, the instructors were given a lot of guidelines from their head of the departments and senior faculty members to remodel the homework so that it's not just, getting the information by a Google search. Rather, they were giving scenarios to, do something and think something about a problem. In terms of the benefits, the flexibility was the topmost benefit we got. So, uh, even though students were having some power outage problem or internet connectivity problem, so but still they were able to make it. And we, being faculty members, we were more responsible in terms of conduct of classes, because we knew there is going to be, a better accountability model, because my recorded lectures are going to be there for a while. And my higher authorities, my dean, was part of every class. So same was the case of HODs. With the HODs, they were made the part of the classes so that they can see what is going on, how many students join these classes. So from time to time, they have been looking what we are doing as a faculty member. And of course, we did get better feedback. So in terms of improving our lecture quality or recording quality. So I think it helped a lot. So in my opinion, I personally liked the online teaching model, and I believe it should be there. And students should be given an option whether they want to opt for online classes or they want to appear for the classes in person. So we already have started the on-campus classes with 50% strength, and we have divided the sessions into two parts. Rather than 90 minutes, we are having two sessions of 40 minutes each. So I think that's all. We can go
Okay,
to the next
thank you,
presenter.
Dr.
Yeah.
Nadeem. Well, I think blended is going to carry with us, and yeah, it stays least of the option whether technology is going to be there or not. It's definitely going to be there. I mean, but I think
Yeah,
that's what we
sure.
are trying to discuss. Thank you so much. So over to me, and let me share my experiences from the perspective of humanities, because I am at Foreman Christian College, Lahore, and my field is humanities, arts, and literature. Basically, I'm a literature person. So maybe I get a bit fuzzy here and there, so please don't mind. But I think, yes, this fuzziness is part of the experience that we are having. Uh, Above all, of course, when we say technology and pedagogy, perhaps we are also trying to find out how the pedagogy of technology actually is transforming into the technology of pedagogy. So both, of course, are interrelated. And we see actually how pedagogy itself needs a redefinition now, because we are all having new modes of interacting with our audience, which, of course, most of the time is our students. So let me just offer a bit of context what I want to say. I just said, well, digital humanities is something that had been talked about, but of course it sounds not an odd, but a strange marriage where we see technology and we try to keep balancing things. When we look at, okay, well, there is a blend. So we keep asking ourselves, okay, how much technology is going to overwhelm us being humans? And that, of course, is a major concern from the humanities perspective. I remember my first interaction at Duke University, where I had this great professor, Catherine Hales, offering me her book about electronic literature. And that really interested me. And I said, okay, so what is electronic literature? Today we see that, yes, literature is being produced, I mean, creatively as well, through electronics. And we see a lot of, I mean, digital work coming up. I think that same is true about arts. I don't know about philosophy, but definitely I think philosophy also might be switching, thinking through technology. So people are doing experiments. Of course, they are learning their way. That we are representing various provinces here, all the speakers, but I don't know. I mean, I'm honored to be part of Punjab and talking from Punjab perspective, but I think there is a further divide into it. How much urban and how much rural? We are talking about like the institutions that are city based, but I think 80% reality lies with the rural, where we perhaps don't know much of the many of the problems, inaccessibility being the foremost. So I think these are concerns when we talk about humans talking to humans through technology. Are we really, I mean, accessible to our audience? That can be the foremost question. And then, of course, there are other hierarchies that can be addressed. We see, I don't mean derogatory manner, but there can be elite institutions and there can be like underprivileged. So, of course, humanities and humans have this concern. Is everybody getting the share, whatever we are trying to distribute? And then, of course, we are trying to focus on university, but I think pedagogy goes beyond university and school and university at times. Many of the pedagogical strategies and skills and planning and methods and methodologies overlap. So that humanities do survive with technology, and that COVID-19 is, of course, a global emergency. And amid that emergency, what is it that we are trying to deal with and learn? I just am reminded of one example here when I talk of machine and man, and by man I mean human. Frankenstein was a novel written by Mary Shelley, I mean, in somewhere in 19th century. So the 1818 produced Victor Frankenstein, who would actually create a sapient creature who would be a bit gothic, a bit romantic, but above all based on science fiction. What happened actually at the end that this creature actually strangulated the creator. So when I'm talking of technology versus arts and humanities, I think from humanities perspective, we are looking for a very balanced approach to the blend that we are getting into. It's not all technology. I think it's about humans who actually are operating that technology. So, and I think I would link it, and I have been saying it, that our audience is student. When we design our courses, when we want them to be on screen for the whole day, what actually we are doing to them through technology. And I think that can be a concern regarding how humans are to interact with technology. That being said, I think we all sense, I don't know, I mean, yes, there is this lot of happiness about that technology has been more flexible, it has saved time, it has saved much of the hassle. But at the same time, we see some lot of element of dissatisfaction also. Maybe because it is the beginning, so we are not being able to actually handle the issues. But of course, well, now of course, when I say redefine, so we are redefining ourselves, even the humanities and the arts. I think the biggest question for us is, who are we educating? I think, I mean, from the humanities perspective, I look at it, we are educating ourselves first. We need to know, okay, how to shake hand with technology, how much and for how long. And I think that's very important for us to learn as teachers. Also, when we talk about disciplines, I think cross-disciplinary issues matter. When we say education, we mean ESP, which is like specific purposes education as well. So for philosophy, there can be different means and methods. For biology, may be different. And of course, I can see Dr. Rehan to be there, and he will later on second us, I mean, how actually biology or zoology may have different methods to apply as compared to philosophy. How much time we give to technology, sitting in front of our laptops, staring at the screens. And we have bioeconomist with us, Jawad Khan, so maybe he can shed some light on what happens to our bodies. Are there any medicinal issues as well that come along? So that needs to be addressed as well. I mean, because from the student, when we say student-centered classroom, so from students' perspective, actually, how are we treating them in terms of their contact with screen? When we say this new way of blending technology with pedagogy, we need to differentiate between distance learning, virtual universities, the way they are operating. Not every institution can be virtual. I think academic socialization that institutions provide and the space that they provide to be together, I mean, humans being social animals, it's very important that we come together. So how much technology can help in actually letting us socialize maybe differently. Also, I think another concern could be because I think we are living with millennials, and younger generation has a different approach to technology. They can spend more time. With aging, of course, things grow different. Based on all that various experiences of teaching, the histories that we carry, how things are changing and how actually we adapt to these new methods and methodologies. From humanities perspective, one of the concerns that come along and can be shared is, I mean, the center and the periphery. So that debate, of course, like the hierarchies that I defined, urban versus rural. But then, of course, the peripheries can get into, okay, maybe the gender differences. And I'm not saying in binary terms like male and female, but other genders. We can also talk about and maybe think from humanities perspective and from human perspective, our special people, how technologies help them. And of course, I think, I mean, in our universities, we have categories as well. So how we deal with them. Another issue that comes along, I mean, home and workplace, how the two collaborate. And I can see, I mean, people can just, I mean, take it casually, being at home. Even the dress code matters, you know, that when we are Zoom, so what's Zoom dress code could be different from. But I think these are the important things actually. Entering an original and physical classroom could be a different experience as compared to having a class which is beyond the continent maybe, or could be like having a wider range. My question, and maybe Jawad can help us on that, commercialization and commodification aspect, you know. We know that education through technology is important, has to be blended, but I think a lot of commercialization and commodification is happening, which at times grows a bit unethical. So where is it that ethics come in terms of that technology is being used for the good and not being exploited for other purposes. That's all from my side, the humanities perspective, and we can now maybe open the house. But before that, of course, Jawad Sahab, who is all the way from New Hampshire with us. Thank you for, taking the challenge. You are in a different time zone. We can understand. Please, if you can help us out from your experience. Over to
I hope I don't
Jawad
look
Khan.
too
Yeah.
sleepy because of the time zone and don't speak other things. So it was like very hard to come up with this presentation and discuss something which can represent Balochistan and maybe shed light on some of the issues. And before that, as you spoke more on the philosophy of the education side, I would start with the statistics or the standing of Pakistan in terms of technology and the facilities that we have. Like, let's suppose if I talk about the inclusion internet ranking of economists, in this ranking, you can see Pakistan stands at the 76th spot, which is third last in Asia. And even Iran, India, Bangladesh, they are better in ranking as compared to us. So these things are alarming, if especially if you are thinking about these kind of education, which is tech-based, which is electronic-based, which is internet-based. So if you are thinking about these things, so we have to see where we stand in this case. And you see the bad ranking that we got. So one of the causes is gender gap in the technological use in Pakistan, low level of digital literacy, and poor network quality. Because I remember even before coming to US, like a year or two ago, like it was very hard for me to get a good quality internet. I mean, at my place, the area where I was living in Quetta, it supports maximum of 2 MB of internet. So you can imagine in just 2 MB of internet, it's impossible to go beyond what the world is offering, and it's really hard to think about those things. Another ranking, if I show to you, it's Global Innovation Index. In this index, you can see it is conducted by Cornell University, and it talks about the political, education, infrastructure, and business sophistication. So in this ranking, again, you can see we are ranked 105 in like all of 126 six countries, which means what, that our business sophistication, our infrastructure and education, it's not performing well. And even if you talk about ISPs or internet service providers, they are not providing the services to the country. Why? Because I think the cost of doing business or all the business facilities that they need is difficult. Otherwise, internet is nothing. Internet is very normal thing that can be supplied, and in many countries, it is one of the human rights. But we don't have that. Now I'm coming towards the Balochistan scenario a bit. So this is very, very, very strange. Like you can see in many parts of Balochistan, like from if you forget about Quetta, there are places where there is electricity shortage of 18 hours a day. There are places where internet 3G and 4G is not allowed, like because of security reason. It's not just a small region, it's major. It's a lot of, like, there are many towns, many districts where internet on mobile doesn't work. Especially we were having complaints from the students that they were not getting internet. So what can be done? Like they were complaining about it, and they even went to court about this, like we need internet. But because of security reason, I don't know what security reasons are, but they don't have internet, and they're not even seeing it coming any sooner. So if we have these kinds of barrier, you cannot think about what we can do about it. BUITEMS still performed really well based on all the supplies, all the technology that we had. It was implemented really well. We delivered our lectures through Microsoft Teams, and we had a learning management system, which is Sakai. and all those lectures were live delivered, and at the same time they were recorded, so which was really good. But we could not conduct the exams, and I think I'm not sure about it, but we got some orders from the court that after the in-person classes we will be conducting exams based on those in-person classes rather than the lectures that we delivered online. So now the in-person classes has already, like, they've started on 15th of September, so people will be conducting exam from there. So coming on the way, coming for the exam side, I think exam needs to be changed, and this side should be worked a lot. Like if I talk about US experience, now the classes that we are taking in US, so they are trying to make it very interactive with the use of multiple apps, very small ones. Just to talk about one eye clicker that we use here these days with undergrads. So it is like whenever the lecture is going on, within lecture there will a poll will appear. So a multiple choice questions will appear in the screens of on the screens of all the students, so they can just vote A, B, C, D, whatever the choices are, and on the runtime they will be graded. So this is I think these apps, they are very engaging for students to get connected with the lecture and stay live and stay focused. So same is like Kahoot, and there are like many other online platforms that are engaging students together. Like earlier it was very hard for us to put focus on so many students. Let's suppose there are 100 and stuff like that, but now with multimedia you can monitor every student, you can see their feedback through different other platforms that we have, which is a good thing, I think, like through if you implement the LMS system in a proper way. So I think engagement of student is very important, which is difficult. And same thing was felt in Balochistan student, like some of them were not coming or they were not present, so other also thought that something in our benefit will happen if they are not taking the classes, so obviously exam will not be conducted. This behavior of learning bad thing from other, bad influence. So we think like कि मतलब इतने लोग नहीं आ रहे हैं तो कुछ हमारे हक में हो ही जाएगा. So these kinds of behavior, this need to be changed. Like students and parents, उनकी education को अभी भी serious उतना नहीं ले रहे जितना लेना चाहिए. So it should be, I think parents involvement is also very important to push their students towards this digital learning and to the seriousness of lectures, which is it, which I don't see it is as serious as it should be. And finally, the prospect of education, we can see very good points through this digital education. Like as we were talking about the gender gap or other things, this digital education can help females learn at home. They can study from home. They can perform very well from home, which is a really good part of digital education in this era, I think. So it is going to be really important. Same goes for the all the knowledge that we have, all the seminars, everything. Nowadays, we can attend seminar sitting in Quetta, and if we have a good internet connection, a seminar is happening in America or in New York, wherever, Canada, wherever, you can just with one click you can attend that seminar, and they are all open and they are mostly are free these days. You just have to look for it. So many good things are happening all across the world. You now just you have to search the seminars list and your area and just enroll, and most of them are free. No visa issues, no flight, and nothing like that, which is the best part of it. So again, coming towards the Dr. Saab's philosophy of balance of the internet, the screen time, and the physical life, and obviously the sports life, which is somehow we are losing. Even the if you look towards the sports, if you look towards any physical thing, now students or all the youth, they are more towards digital gaming. They are moving away from even the real sports that once we used to see, once we used to play in, like on the street, on the roads and stuff like that. It's all like going away because of they are replaced by PUBG, they are replaced by all other sorts of. So So these distractions on internet and these rule making, these these ethics, they should be done with the consent of parents and with the involvement of government. And without these ethical boundaries and separation and bringing balance to this digital world, will be lost, I think, because it is enormous and there is no end to it. So we need that. So that's it. I think that's it from my side. And thank you all for listening.
Well, thank you so much, Jawad Khan Sahib, all the way from New Hampshire. And yes, I think with all the prospects that we have, and of course, nobody can deny that that's a definitely very important reality that we all have to live by. But then I think when I said like redefine, I think we have to redefine our pedagogies in a very balanced manner. At the cost of machine, we should not lose the human. I mean, that's my perspective. I'm not being moralistic on that. Technology is important, but then I think we don't have to lose ourselves to it. With that point, I think we can go back to Dr. Wajiha Raza and request her to open the house. And we have all other great experts with us among the audience. So let's see, what other people want to add up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Waseem, Dr. Nadeem, Dr. Khatri, and Jawad for presenting on the topic. I think we have looked at the situation from different dimensions, and all of these are very important for us. I think we are representing different subjects. That's also extremely interesting and important. I myself was teaching screenwriting and film production during lockdown. Apart from research methodology, filmmaking is a teamwork sort of thing. So it was quite interesting to look at producing film together while in places and without meeting each other. So that was an interesting experience itself, and I hope to look forward to comments of all who are present here today. So we can, I believe we can add more dimension to this debate, and I open the floor for discussion. Please go ahead.
Very interesting, and it was nice to hear Mohammed. Well, about my experience, I don't tell my age. I am going to be 80 years in November, but I am still young.
Yes, you are.
Telling my age because in last semester, when I told the student, introduced myself, and I said I started teaching in 1962, one of the students, the front row, said even my father was not born when you started teaching. What I want to tell is that I am still learning at this age. So on March 12, in one of the faculty meeting, our rector announced that they are not going to have classes anymore, and we are going to be online. So I never had much experience of teaching online, but I'm going to do. So I talked with some of my colleagues, and here my students, there are about 35 in each section. They were very helpful. So they became my teacher, and they said, don't worry, sir, we will make groups on WhatsApp. So these groups of about 5 or 6 in students in each group, they were made. And then what I did was that I already had PowerPoints that I used to deliver, use in my classes. So I started recording, and here again, my students were very helpful, and I recorded them. And then what I did was I emailed those PowerPoints to the students. And this was very successful. Almost everybody got the PowerPoints. The next step was to have interactive session with them. So I invited them in these interactive sessions, and here the big problem was connectivity, because half of the class said that they don't have internet or very poor internet facility. And then while I was talking to them, there was these vendors saying, Tori lo, Bindi lo, ye lo, wo lo. Some of these younger ones, younger brothers and sisters will interrupt them, because in one room there were 3 or 4 people working. So these are realities of life here. So, but we managed to cover almost all these syllabus, and we were told that nobody is going to fail. This I told them that you are not going to flunk, so everybody will get at least C in the course. But I think it was very nice, very interesting. The big problem was about the lab, because in biology, you know, without labs, you cannot cover this course. So this was a big hurdle. And they say you can have virtual labs, but I don't know much about that. Other than that, I think it was very interesting. And now I am learning about how to use Zoom and how to use this Moodle and some of the other things. So this is my experience of this online teaching. Thank you.
Wonderful. Really helpful. Yeah. So anybody else has any comment or question?
I'm an FC alumni. I did my psychology and philosophy from there, and then I went to the new school on Fulbright and did my majors in psychology. At the moment, I'm teaching at the Institute for Art and Culture. The two major concerns I have as a professor there, and also as a psychology major. The first one is that you see, when you teach in class, and the method that at least I use is that of discussion, is that of inquiry. So I do not tell definitions. I ask questions and the students make their own definitions. So definitely there's a lack of connection between the student. When you teach online, even if it's on Zoom or WhatsApp or recorded lectures, there's one person speaking. And so there's no cross questioning, there's no discussion. It's like a dummy is sitting on the other hand, another dummy is sitting on the other hand, and you're just saying out stuff. And you don't know, because there's no body language, there's no reaction. So the teacher doesn't know how much the student is into it, how much he or she is understanding it, how are they perceiving it. So how do we as teachers cater to that problem? Because I think that student feedback, be it through their body language or through their words, is a really important factor in the efficiency of teaching. And the other question I have is that, yes, we are also recording lectures, we're also using Google Classrooms, we're also using G Suite. But the problem is, for me at least, that how do I ensure the students watch the entire video? Our time span of watching any video, even if it's interesting, is about 3 to 5 minutes max. And so when we record a lecture of, say, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and that too is a theoretical lecture, then how do we ensure they watch the entire lecture and they understand the concepts?
I'm Assistant Professor, Media Sciences, ABIST, Karachi. My Fulbright was MFA Design from Mass Art Boston, and my thesis and courses electives were at the MIT Media Lab. Right. So during this break, COVID-19, we were asked to get some online training because none of us were really trained in the pedagogy of online teaching. So I talked to a lot of medical doctors and artists here in Karachi, and they recommended a Coursera course, which is actually free. If you apply for scholarship, you don't have to pay anything. It just takes like 2 weeks for that application process, coursera.org. The course is called How to Teach Online. It's by University of New South Wales, UNSW. And I think it was really beneficial because it explained a lot of things. Because if you look at online modules themselves, you have a small video, then you have some engagement where you have a small quiz or some lecture or some email feedback activity. The real problem that we are facing in Pakistan generally, at least in my teaching, is you cannot replicate the exact class model online. It doesn't translate at all. You can have 90-minute lectures, you can have like that half-an-hour break. It doesn't make any sense. And then engagement with students is a problem because most of their cameras are off. They've got internet issues. You can't see what they even check if they're actually following along. Half of them are sleeping, or they're not even on their laptops, and they just turn they just log in, and then I think they go to sleep or something. So that's a problem. So in that case, I would say smaller lectures, smaller modules, and also a reverse classroom methodology in which I think some material needs to be prepared beforehand, and really the discussion model is encouraged. So you basically say, okay, this is a video, you see it, and then you come to class, and then we discuss, we take turns, and then you kind of quiz them or something. So that engagement is there, and also the other problem is really technology is not ubiquitous here in Pakistan. Everyone's using something else. When we started the course online, teaching online, in February, or I think in the mid of March, we started with something called Skype for Business because it was free. HEC had provided us some software, Skype for Business, and it was horrible. That software is not really in a class model. It's not a good user experience at all. It's not engaging. It's hard to install. There's no tech support. All kinds of issues. So then we switched to something like Zoom. But then was a problem. You need to buy license, and all kinds of licensing issues started coming in. So then we started to switch to the G Suite, which is Google for Education. And we use Google Meet. We record all the meetings. Google Classroom is a very big help. I think it's the only sort of so-called free, tool out there, and it has a lot of good tools. But it's still not enough. I think there are other modules like I think our friend from the US. I believe Mohammed Jawad, he suggested that maybe these small tools or apps can be used to have in-class interactions. These are good ideas, but they're not. This is a one-person experience. HEC is not doing anything about it. They're not sitting down. They're not quizzing us. They're not asking us. They're sitting down and trying to decide on our behalf. And they're aware कि जो challenges north के अंदर हैं वो यहाँ पर नहीं है. जो शहरों के अंदर we have electricity, we have internet. But there are other challenges. So that's something of a real problem. It just shows the disparity and disconnect between us in the cities and those not in the cities. And that's a major issue, I think, that perhaps the government should work on. A population, look at Pakistan, 220 million, 60% below the age of 35. This is shocking. Most kids won't never reach university. So primary schooling is a challenge by itself. I won't comment, but I'm just saying these are major, major issues. I think technology has now given us an opportunity to probably innovate and use sort of the best practices, and maybe share them. No other platform is actually doing that right now, at least to my knowledge. So I guess a lot more collaboration needed. This is a very good step. And I think more of these, I think the whole series of these lectures should be conducted and interactions and perhaps documented and shared with others.
So, Jawad, I would like you to actually talk about the gaps and maybe suggest something.
Okay, thank you so much. Like coming to one of the questions from Miss Anam, as she said, like video is really long in span and something like that. So I think one thing which is missing in when I was teaching back in Pakistan, are assignments and outcome-based assignments, which is very important. So we are not very good at that part. Right now I'm taking a data science course, and obviously it has a long video, but I had to watch all the video, even if I watch it in pieces, but I do watch. Why? Because when I'm doing the assignment, and if I miss any part of the video, I am unable to do the assignment. So in order to submit that assignment, I do watch that video no matter how lengthy it is. So obviously अब ये cheating का अगर element हटा दिया जाए, like back home it is different. Like if they copy assignments from one another, this I can't say anything. But obviously if you have to do the assignment and it is graded and it has a good grade for towards their final exam, they will work really hard for that and they will watch your lecture.
बात है लर्निंग की, और उसमें भी सेंस ऑफ रिस्पांसिबिलिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ द मोर यू डू द मोर यू लर्न, एंड आई थिंक दैट्स ट्रू अबाउट टीचर्स, दैट्स ट्रू अबाउट स्टूडेंट्स एज वेल. सो आई थिंक दिस इज वन पॉइंट दैट वी नीड एज टीचर्स टू लर्न, कि जो हम इतना एग्जाम और असेसमेंट को इतना वेटेज देते हैं, या क्विज के 1-2 पे हम पास और फेल करते हैं, we need to think beyond that. Because learning happens multiple ways, and I'm talking particularly from humanities and philosophy and arts and literature perspective. Reading, you can always suggest lots of reading, unending. Outcome, उसको आप देख लें कैसे आपने लेना. मैंने बच्चों को एग्जाम के फोबिया से निकालने की कोशिश की. That exams are not your test. We are all being tested. I mean, I am failing on many things when it comes to technology. I'm learning from my students. So I think ये एक congenial सा माहौल, friendly माहौल बना के एक दूसरे को सीखने सिखाने का, That is perhaps more important for us too.
राफिया और डॉक्टर तारिक खान तलाल और अफान जावेद, अगर आप लोग इसमें कुछ ऐड करना चाहते हैं, अली नासिर, इफ यू वांट टू ऐड समथिंग फ्रॉम योर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ यूसीपी, आई थिंक दैट वुड बी वेरी नाइस, क्योंकि हम इसको डिफरेंट सब्जेक्ट डायमेंशंस देख रहे हैं। जी जी, डॉक्टर सदाकत मेहदी हैज बीन अराउंड ऑल द वाइल, तो आई थिंक कि काफी सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं, वर्चुअल में भी रहे हैं, एंड ही इज, आई थिंक ही वुड हैव अ डिफरेंट ओपिनियन ऑन द सब्जेक्ट एज वेल, तो आई थिंक उनसे भी सुन के अच्छा लगेगा।
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Well, this COVID era actually forced me to do something that I've been meaning to do for some time. That is to create a YouTube channel for learning of the students. But that aside, I'm really thankful. I really learned some new things from especially from Dr. Waseem and Jawad Saab, who brought in the gender issue as well. And Dr. Khatri gave a very nice presentation. So my question to all of you, partially you have already brought this issue into light, but I just want to stress a little bit more upon it. That is the question of the attitude of our youth, because the way youth is resisting against learning, that is a very bad prospect for the future of Pakistan. So how can we work on the attitude of the youth and inspire them to learn the way we have been inspired in our parent institutes in the US?
तो मेरा ख्याल है हमें और playful pedagogy की तरफ जाना पड़ेगा. I mean, how much time the youth spends on technology? हम इतना नहीं करते जितना वो करते हैं. लेकिन I think the mode of learning can be different. My granddaughter can guide me towards using new apps. I would be dumb on that. So I think जो positive side है कि technology में कितना कोई in है और किस बात पे, तो मे बी virtual university का experience अगर डॉक्टर सादत साहब कुछ कहना चाहें.
I think this institution did good job during this pandemic. They offered to more than 20 institutions. So my question is again, if you're talking about remote areas, the main part, that's what I'm saying, the facilities.
That yes, we need to relook into our pedagogies, number one. Number two, you just said, okay, that exam modes also need to change. And so yeah, mere lecturing is not going to work.
Right. So in my case, we had students who live in the interior, some students who live in KPK, COVID ki wajah se, they had to go back home. And hostels were shut down. So they were the ones who had the real problems, because some of them did not have access to computers, some of them didn't have access to internet, they didn't have access to the software that we use during our classes. So what we had to do is we had to create parallel assignments that don't really require the use of computers or particular specialized software. And we had to grade them separately. Now, obviously that's a bit unfair, but then what can we do? I mean, we can't really send them a laptop, there's just too many of them, and they're not in our city, they're outside our reach. So that's something of a challenge also, because they simply were not able to come in the live classes. They had to watch the recorded classes at their own time, or perhaps going to a nearby town or village where they had better internet access. They had issues with power shortages, power breakdowns, and obviously they didn't have access to the software. So that's actually one of the major issues for a country like Pakistan, where if you don't have access to the labs, and my courses, a lot of them are lab courses. They're practical. You have to do them. You can't just write about them. So we just had to create paper pencil alternatives, which were non-computer reliant. So that.
जी काजी साहब, मेरा ख्याल है बड़ा अच्छा पॉइंट है आपका. जैसे हम मिक्स्ड एबिलिटी क्लासेस में बिलीव करते हैं, इसी तरह मिक्स्ड एक्सेसिबिलिटी भी है. So yeah, that is a very important issue to be addressed. मेरा एक बड़ा लाइटर नोट पे एक ऐसे ही डिस्कशन के लिए है, टीचर्स एज एक्टर्स, टीचिंग एंड एक्टिंग, and how we look at the screen at ourselves, and what sort of feelings we have as teachers. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on
that. Dr. Waseem, I think as teachers we have to stay attentive. We have to stay attentive more than our students, because students always saying कि मैम मेरा इंटरनेट कनेक्शन काम नहीं कर रहा और मैम my microphone is not working. I think most regular excuse थी कि मेरा माइक नहीं काम कर रहा. So one day I ended up asking कि टीचर का माइक कभी नहीं बंद होता. My mic is somehow always working. So I think it's very interesting कि हमारे पास अगर वहाँ पे क्लासरूम में 22 students हैं या कम हैं या ज़्यादा हैं, so we have to ask them question off and on to just to hear something from them. I think it keeps them engaged. Or secondly, I think already one of our panelists mentioned earlier कि ये हमारा test था कि हम खुद हमारी अपनी टीचर्स एज टीचर्स हमारी परफॉर्मेंस कैसी है. It has been a long time that any of us had taken an exam and this was a test in itself. So it was great. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I would like Dr. Waseem to give his concluding comments.
Well, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity. I think the discussion was very fruitful from all angles. और जो हमने डिफरेंट और बड़ा अच्छा लगा मुझे कि हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड क्या सॉल्यूशंस हैं ऑलरेडी. तो उनमें जैसे कि एक पैनलिस्ट ने बात की थी कि जी ट्रेनिंग की बड़ी ज़रूरत है. I think we all are getting training at official level as well as an unofficial level. And this is a continuing business that we have to actually live with. And this is, we don't have to feel shy or we don't have to feel discouraged कि जी मुझे ये नहीं आता, मुझे वो नहीं आता. So I think every day we are learning something, number one. Number two, जो मैंने कहा था कि blended, I think from students perspective हमें ये ज़रूर सोचना चाहिए कि जब मैं स्कूल्स लेवल पे भी बात कर रहा हूँ और यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पे कि अगर हम सारे दिन में जितने भी सेशन कराते हैं उनका जो फिजिकली इन क्लासरूम एनवायरनमेंट और था, और अब हम जब स्क्रीन पे और ऑनलाइन की बात कर रहे हैं तो ये एनवायरनमेंट और है जिसमें होम और वर्क प्लेस की भी डिस्पैरिटी जो है वो सामने आती है. बच्चों के घरों में क्या हो रहा है हमें नहीं मालूम, हमारे अपने घरों में क्या हो रहा है हमें नहीं मालूम, कितना बर्डन किसी के ऊपर है, कितने किसी के पर्सनल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, शायद उस तरह से शेयरिंग नहीं हो रही. जब हम अपनी क्लासेस में होते हैं आई ऑलवेज मेक इट अ पॉइंट कि जी मुझे पता हो कि मेरे स्टूडेंट्स के पर्सनल इश्यूज क्या हैं, वो लेट क्यों आता है कोई, मैंने कभी उनको रोका नहीं, बट वी नो कि जी वो कोई किस एमरजेंसी में है. नाउ वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट वी आर ऑल इन एन एमरजेंसी एंड वी आर ऑल लर्निंग. So I think it's very important for us to understand the weight of the burden that anybody is carrying. Staying compassionate on grounds of learning is very important. We need to understand everybody's problems. And इसमें एग्जाम का जो एक फोबिया भी है और जो हम एक असेसमेंट को एक हवा बना लेते हैं, इसको भी फ्लेक्सिबल बनाएं. क्योंकि आई हैव सीन इन, मैं कमेंट नहीं करूँगा कहाँ कहाँ पे, अगर आप वाइडर रेंज में जाएं तो स्कूल्स में भी आई थिंक टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ कैलसनेस एग्जामिनेशन का एक फोबिया है. सो आई एम सॉरी टू से उससे क्या लर्निंग बेहतर होगी? आई डोंट थिंक सो. सो लर्निंग के मोड्स बदले हैं, हमें भी बदलना है. सो आई थिंक जब मैंने ब्लेंडेड और बैलेंस का, और उसमें जवाद खान साहब ने भी पिक किया था, तो मुझे नहीं पता कि इनकी बायो इकोनॉमी फाइनली हमें क्या, क्योंकि इसमें एक इकोनॉमिक्स का एंड भी चल रहा है, इसमें एक कमर्शलाइजेशन भी चल रही है, ये सारा कुछ. लेकिन सेंटर में, सेंटर प्लीज, पेरिफेरी कहीं भी हो सकती है लेकिन सेंटर में इंसान है. मेरा तो यही पर्सपेक्टिव है, मेरी ह्यूमैनिटीज की बैकग्राउंड है. मैं कहूँगा लेट्स नॉट लूज द ह्यूमन साइड ऑफ इट, whatever technology we are involved into. And I think that's my concluding remark overall based on this discussion. What is the outcome? Of course, USEFP alumni are leaders. We have been leaders. How are we going to once again collaborate on finding solutions? और वो challenges तो अपनी जगह पे रहेंगे. And Dr. Wajiha is the president of Pak-NAFA. So I think you will carry all this report to the USEFP, and very hopeful that they will also play their part.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Goodbye and thanks. Take care.